Hey y'all, my name is Jordan, and today I'll be going over 5 Python coding interview tips. The first topic that I want to go over is unpacking. So unpacking allows us to set variables for multiple elements in a list in one line. So for example, if we had this list right here, and we wanted to set like 100 to a variable, a hello to a variable, and 3.14 to a variable, we'd have to do something like this. So we're going to access each element via its index. And now this could be really long and be really tedious, especially if you have a lot of elements. So with unpacking, what you could do is use a comma separated variable names and set that equal to the list. So now we could go ahead and print A, B, C over here. Save that, print it, and now we see we get each output 100, hello, and 3.14. So important thing to know is that you have to have the same number of elements as the variables you're trying to set. So in this case, let's say I did not need this hello, then I would have to do something like an underscore just to be a placeholder to make sure that I set A equal to 100 and C equal to 3.14. My second tip would be swapping variables in Python. So typically you would need some sort of temporary variable to store a value in. So in this case, I'm going to do temp equals A equals B, and B equals temp. And I'm going to print this, and we're going to see that these variables have been swapped. So A is 100 and B is 0. So a better way to do this is actually using unpacking like we learned earlier. So we can do A comma B equals B comma A, and this should achieve the same exact thing. My third tip would be using the enumerate method in Python. So you would use enumerate when you need to loop through all the elements in a list and access both the index and the element at the same time. So this could be done using range, but range isn't as concise as enumerate. Let me show you how to do both. So for I in range length of array, I'm going to set n equal to array I, which is going to be the list element, and then I'm going to print I, which is the index corresponding with the list element. And as you can see, we get 0, 10, 1, 20, 2, 30, and so on. So instead of doing this, we could use enumerate, which is going to be more concise. So for in enumerate array, so there's some unpacking going on over here that gives you the index and the current value. And then we have access to it right away. And we could delete this, clear the console, and print it, and we see we get the same exact result. My fourth tip would be using the default dictionary in Python. I want to know the number of ones in this element and the number of twos. And the way I could do this is by creating an empty dictionary and then loop through every element in the list and adding 1 to its mapping. So for n in array, I'm going to create a mapping of counts, and then I want to add 1 to it. And then this is going to give me my mapping. So this is what I just want to see. I'm going to print counts. I'm going to go ahead and run this code. And as you can see, we get this key error over here. It says that 1 doesn't exist in this map. And that's true. We instantiated an empty dictionary and 1 doesn't exist. So we're not adding 1 to anything. So to make this work, what we have to do is check if n is in this list in the first place. So if n not in counts, if it's not in there, then we have to add it. So counts n equals 0. And we're going to run this again. And now we could see we get a mapping of 1 to 4, which is the number, and 2 to 3. A better way we could do it is using the default dictionary. So what I'm going to do is import default dictionary. And then instead of instantiating a dictionary like this, we could use this constructor, default dictionary, and you pass in the default value or type that you want. So in this case, I'm going to do an integer. And a default integer would mean we get this value 0 for if it doesn't exist. So we don't need this here anymore, so we can delete this. And now we have code similar to what we had earlier. I'm going to clear this, and then I'm going to print this. And now we get a default dictionary object back with, again, the counts that we need. So if we wanted to convert this to a normal dictionary, all we could do is just wrap this here with dictionary and return this, and now we get a normal dictionary with our counts. My last tip is going to be using the heapq module to create a min heap and max heap. So I'm going to do this by instantiating an empty list, which is going to be our heap, and then I'm going to push every element in this array into our heap. So for n in array, I'm going to heapq dot heap push is going to be the function, and the first parameter is going to be the heap that we want to push to. So in this case, it's going to be heap, and then we're going to add the element that we want to push as our next parameter, in this case n. So now we have every element in our min heap. Now we're going to want to pop off every element to see what's inside. So while heap, so as long as there are elements in our heap in the first place, I'm going to heap q and then heap pop. And then I'm going to insert the heap that I want to pop from, which in this case is heap. So this actually returns a value, and I'm going to want to print this here to see what we get. And as you can see, we get 1, 2, 3, because by default it's a minimum heap, so we're adding everything in there and then we're popping off the smallest value each time. So to make this a max heap, we're actually just going to have to multiply by -1 when we insert and retrieve from our heap. So over here I'm multiplying by -1, and then when we retrieve it, we multiply by -1 again. And if we print, you could see we get the greatest element first, and then the next greatest, and so on until we get to the end of the list.